Hey, before we cut to this video, we actually did this one a little bit different. Normally I jump on and I kind of teach one big thing for the whole video. But on this one, I was asked by the Hillsong Business community to come and do a webinar for them. They were smart enough when COVID hit to pull their business people together every single week. And although I'm not a Hillsong member, they invited me on to talk. But this is actually different. I'm actually running through the five learnings from scripture. And so they're kind of modularized. You can watch them throughout. So we're going to timestamp them in the comments below and you'll be able to cut to the individual topic if you want to. Anyway, here's this week's video.
Just a little bit about my story, only because I want to give you some context. I know that's not the fun part or probably why you jumped on, but I'm half English, half Australian. I've spent most of my life here, so I guess mostly Australian. And I didn't grow up with a faith at all. In fact, I really had no idea who God was at all. It was never part of the conversation. I probably went to church twice for a christening or something. Like it was really nothing for me. And I kind of grew up in one of those homes where, you know, on the outside they looked like they had it all together, but on the inside it was a disaster. And split parents and those sort of things. And but that can build a phenomenal resilience inside of us if we choose to kind of see things that way. And then a few years later, my mum found a partner. We moved to Australia. And when you land in a foreign country, I was 14 years old. I didn't know anybody. It builds a phenomenal resilience inside of you. And then fast forward, I went back to London in '99 and started my first official business. And it was a window cleaning company. And I really enjoyed it. Like we were really green. We had no idea what we were doing. It was just me and my best buddy out cleaning windows. He had some experience cleaning windows. I had none. Figured it wouldn't be too hard. Learned how to do it by Smoko on the first day, and then our business was launched. And we did that for about 2.5 years. And then somebody offered to buy our business from us, buy our window cleaning round, which of course the answer was yes. And I realized you make more money selling a business than you do running it. And so from there, we went and built another window cleaning business and sold it. Had a turf delivery business, had a garden maintenance company, moved back to Australia, had a window cleaning business, had a business where I brokered technology, telecoms. And really for me, all I wanted to do when I was younger was start businesses. So start businesses, learn. I just wanted to go through that real big learning phase and then sell it. And to date, I've built and sold 8 companies spanning professional services, franchising, financial services, telecoms, and trades. So it's been a really good, interesting time to learn, and I'm super grateful for those learning years. But along that way, this young girl one day was bold enough to say to me, "You should come to church." And I remember thinking, righto, that was it. That was my decision. Righto, I'll go. And I was probably searching at the time for something, but I wouldn't have known that at the time. But I went to church on the first day I ever went and literally fell in love with God within about 3 seconds of being in church. But that'll mess with you, right? When in my worldview prior to becoming a believer was business was just there to serve me, give me everything I want. You know, if I want a bigger house, build a bigger business. If I want another car, build a bigger business. Like the kind of like the social engineering, if you like, that I had been exposed to in the world was that it was all about me. And if I can be totally honest with you guys, it was not a foreign thought to me when I was a young guy to think, I'll start a business, I'll make loads of money, I'll probably trade in my first wife, because that'll fall apart, and then I'll get another one. Like that, like now I couldn't think of anything worse. But at the time, before coming to Christ, that was like a total, there's a standard reality for the people in this world. And then, of course, I became a believer, and I started pouring through the scriptures, and my world fell apart because I started reading about a way of doing business that was nothing like the world that I had been in. Started pouring through, Leviticus and reading about the Jubilee cycle and how to look after the widow and how to look after the poor. And I'm thinking, this is not how our world operates, but this is how God wants us to operate. And so basically it became an absolute mission to work out, how does God want us to operate? How does God plan to redeem the marketplace? And ultimately, how do we play a part in that? And so that's basically from that moment to today, that's been an ever quest for me to try and understand it, and then of course live it out. And God's amazing, right? Because I literally went from that worldview to becoming a believer and having to shift the way I operate my businesses and the whole ethos of the business. And then God brings me an amazing wife, and now I've got 3 beautiful daughters who are 12, 7, and 4, and we are thick as thieves. I've got the best family in the world. I know you may think that you do, but you don't. I've got the best family in the world, and I just love them. And they're all girls, so I'm not sure what the Lord's trying to show me with the all girls thing, but I'm sure I'll work it out at about the time that they want to get married. So that's a little bit of the story. I guess, my shortest seminar is normally 2 days, so I've got now about 37 minutes to cover off on some topics. So, like I was saying before we actually officially started, I did actually go and binge watch the last 6 or 7 of these connects that you guys have done, just to kind of get an understanding of the level of teaching. And it's amazing that the content that you guys are going through is so amazingly practical. I literally went right back to the first one of this year, which I think is the one that Andrew did, and it was so foundational to keep you back to what matters. And so having heard all of that, I don't just want to kind of copy the same stuff. I kind of wanted to just pick a few things that were slightly different. And as much as I would love to be on here and teach you how to create a Facebook ads campaign that drives traffic to your website and converts them all so that you can hire more people and make more money, as much as I would love to do that, because that's my day job, I think we'll stick to some more spiritual stuff on here. So I've got 5 lessons down here. I don't know that I'll get through them all, but we'll see how we go. The first concept, I guess, for me that is really important is, and these are our own words, it's the concept of the 2 operating systems that are at war in this world. And I call them kingdom versus Babylon, right? And although Babylon finished many, many years ago as a country, as a people group, the culture of Babylon still reigns today. And it's not a new thing. In fact, the concept of Babylon precedes Babylon, because you could go right back to Cain and Abel. And you could see Cain and Abel, the first time that 2 entrepreneurs are asked to give an offering. It's the first encounter. And God says, bring an offering. And as you know, one brings the best fat portions and brings them as an offering. And the other brother brings just a few tatty veggies to the table. And what does God say to the brother that brings their veggies? He says, sin is crouching at your door and you need to rule over it. God actually says to him, it wants to devour you. What's the sin? What is it that was going to get hold of him? It was self-interest. See, one brother was like, it all came from God. I'm happy to give it back to God. I'll just give it to God. The other brother was like, no, it's mine. I've worked hard. I want to keep it, blah, blah, blah. So right there, we see the concept of kingdom versus Babylon playing out, right? We see the 2 different motivations that we can have as kingdom entrepreneurs. Fast forward to Noah. Noah's asked to build an ark. It takes, we don't know exactly, but about 60 to 70 years for him to build the ark. So you think you suffer persecution when somebody puts an angry face on your Facebook post. Imagine building an ark for 60 years and everyone thinks you're a loony. And then, of course, God floods the earth, 40 days, 40 nights. It takes about 1 year for the rain to subside. For the rain starting to them being able to get out of the ark is about a year. And then Noah's biggest test comes, I believe. I believe the test that comes after the ark was bigger than the test that was create the ark. When God's instructions to Noah were release all of the animals, right? Now, Noah at that point owned all the wealth in the world. The only thing that had any value was animals, and Noah had all of them. And God says, give them all away. He didn't say give 10% of them away. He said give them all away. And Noah did it. So fast forward 3 generations and we get to Noah's grandson called Cush. And Cush has a son called Nimrod. And I'm sure you've read about Nimrod. Nimrod was a mighty warrior, right? Made that way by God. Physically tall, physically strong, military-minded, intimidating guy. And because he was meant to be that for God's kingdom, but he turned around. And he warred against God. And Nimrod set up modern-day Babylon. And, as you read the story, Nimrod's first genius idea was to build the Tower of Babel, build a tower higher than the waterline of the flood. Because he was basically saying, I'm bigger than God, I'm better than God. It's that self-interest, again, played out massively. And so he sets up Babylon, and that event, his altercation where he decided to turn away from God, happened in what in modern day Syria is about the location, and then his kingdom of self-interest, socialist kind of agenda ended up kind of enveloping the whole countryside. It went north and west, east around the world, and enveloped everything. And even though Babylon as a country and a people group is gone, the concept is still here. We have a world today that is operating on self-interest. An entire world today that is me first and everybody else later. And yet that is the complete opposite of how we are called to run, right? So let's bring that to something that's practical. Our businesses that we run or steward, whatever kind of role you get, our businesses are firstly to advance the kingdom of God. Our businesses, our proprietary limited, our law mowing business, our accountancy, our dog walking business, whatever we're in, that is an asset. We've got to view our businesses as an asset of the kingdom that's first purpose is to advance the kingdom of God. Because anything short of that means that it must be self-interest, right? And self-interest, that culture of self-interest is the very thing that, God has been warring against since he first created Adam and Eve. And this is, even right up to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were like the biggest group of people that were into self-interest, right? Selling salvation, selling healings, which is why Jesus comes along and does it for free, and then upsets them because then they can't charge for them. So I think in our mind, we've got to always be checking our heart around what is our intent. Is it self-interest or is it first an interest of the kingdom of God? See, we all know the scripture that says seek first the kingdom of God. The beautiful thing about that is that there must be a second. If the instructions are to seek first, then there must be a second and a third. And so it's okay. It's okay to want to have things from your business, right? But that's got to be a seek second. Seek first would be, I want to use my business to be insanely profitable, to love on my clients, love on my suppliers, love on my team, give people an expression of the kingdom of God, and then build a business big enough that I have the influence of the ear of my community. If we can aim for those 3 things, highly profitable, give people that touch our business an expression of the kingdom, and then build a business that's impacting enough that we get the ear of the influencers in our communities, towns, and countries, then we will finally be the voice that we need to be in Australia and beyond. Every country could have that, right, if we took that seriously. And so I guess what falls behind there is an obligation. It's an obligation to build a business bigger than you're comfortable. Right? It's okay to build a business to the point where you get everything you want in life, plus you can give 10% away. That's not hard. Well, it might be hard, but it's swimming in the shallow end of the pool. Once you've got what you want and you've set yourself up and you've got a little bit and you're funding your churches and you're doing good works, you should still be building. Still be building. There's no limit to God in what he can bring to the table. Still building, because irrespective of the money, you need a bigger business, because the world system puts on a pedestal entrepreneurs that build big businesses. And the minute you get a bigger business, you get the ear and the influence of the people around you. It's like if it's seek first the kingdom of God, then we can't tap out just because we've made enough money or we feel like we're contributing well or we're tired. Like just, when your time's up, just burn out like a candle. Okay, that's probably not advice from a good counselor, but it's kind of how I view it. All right, the second kind of thing I've got is if you read Exodus 17:12, you know the story. It's the story of Moses and Joshua. Joshua's gone to battle, and Moses is up on the hill. And God says, every time you raise your hands, Moses, Joshua will be winning the battle. And every time you drop your hands, Joshua will start losing the battle. And they go through that a few times. And then what happens? Aaron and Hur come along. They put a rock under him, and they hold up Moses' arms so that he can keep them up because he's tired. And Joshua goes on to win the battle. That right there is a picture of the symbiotic relationship between the marketplace and our spiritual covering, right? So the marketplace being us, we're out in the marketplace all day, every day, doing business, transacting. Our spiritual coverings, which for me is my local pastor. I actually have two because I've got such a relationship from the pastor that I had for 15 years prior that I've got a great relationship with him. I've got a great relationship with my current pastor. And then we have paid intercessors on staff who get alongside of us and kind of play that role as prophet/intercessor, and we have those on team. So I've got those spiritual coverings who are out there effectively as an act of warfare for me. And so here's the thing, right? Can you imagine how crazy it would have been for Joshua, who's down in the battlefield, to just decide, oh man, it's hard down here. This is so hard. It's sweaty, it's hot, there's blood everywhere, I'm killing people. I'm going to go and hang out with Moses. That sounds like a much, much easier job. I'm going to go up on the hill and hang out, Can you imagine how good he'd be at being a spiritual covering? And what would happen to the army, right? They've got no leader, no direction, the whole thing falls over. It would be just as crazy for Moses. Can you imagine Moses, right? He's like 1,000,000 years old and he's tired. And imagine Moses saying, stuff it, I'm going to go down there and put a sword on and I'm going to go and fight with Joshua, right? He would take one foot on the battlefield and he'd be gone. So we have to learn to play in position. Ours is the marketplace. Our spiritual covering is our spiritual covering. And when we work together, it is ridiculously powerful, right? So our spiritual coverings, right? So for those of you who are part of the Hillsong family, you've got a massive blessing that you may take for granted, I don't know, and that's Dan. Dan, your stewardship pastor who's out there praying for you, meeting with you, interceding for you. You've got Andrew who's, I don't know what Andrew calls himself as part of the organization, but he is a spiritual authority over this business group. Like that is such a powerful position, right? And obviously for those of you who are Hillsong, you've got Brian and Bobby, two of possibly the best leaders in the world, who are out there advocating for you too. So that's them doing their job, but what's our job? Our job is when our spiritual covering is strong and we win the battle, we go into business, we become profitable, we've got more money. Our job is to then bring those spoils back to make sure our spiritual coverings are strong. Our job is to be profitable. Remember, they're doing their bit. They're praying for us, active spiritual warfare, standing the enemy down. Therefore, we win more in business. When we win more in business, our job is to then take those spoils and make sure our spiritual covering's strong. Funding churches, funding projects, funding programs, holding up the arms of our spiritual overseers, right? We've got a massive disconnect across the body of Christ between those two roles. I mean, outside of the Hillsong family, there are others that are doing an okay job of validating and praying for the entrepreneurs, and then the vast majority of entrepreneurs have just been forgotten about. If we can just get those two parties back to the table to work together, then the kingdom will be unstoppable, financially, powerfully. You can imagine, it's very rarely going to be the pastors who have influence in the community. It's going to be the business people that have influence in the community. But of course, once they've got the relationship, they can bring the pastors to the table, right, and start to bring some shepherding and changing policy and those sort of things that ultimately we need so that we don't get half of the rubbish that's going through the world today. But I guess, you've got a spiritual covering that's over the top of you. The bit I want to emphasize is you have an obligation to make sure that your spiritual coverings are well funded, which means that you are probably going to have to go without, right? You're probably going to have to go without to make sure that your spiritual coverings go with. The last thing you want to have is a spiritual covering that cannot be a spiritual covering because they don't have enough funding to be able to be a spiritual covering, right? That's effectively stealing in the kingdom of God. If your spiritual covering is doing warfare for you so that you prosper more in business, but you don't reward your spiritual covering with the spoils of war, you're effectively taking from the kingdom of God and not seeking first. Apologies if this is a bit of an uppercut. I know it's early, but I always look at it like this. I might have 40 minutes with you for the rest of my life, so I want to say something that impacts you, and maybe even if you don't like it. I want to talk about the transfer of wealth for a minute. The transfer of wealth is such a cool topic. God has always wanted the transfer of wealth from the wicked to the righteous. He's always wanted it. From the very, 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 very beginning of the Bible, God wants the wealth to be in the hands of the righteous. Why? Why would he want that? Well, when the wealth is transferred from the wicked to the righteous use it for good means. The righteous will build churches, build programs, build homes, shelters, right? You know, like things that actually matter in society, right? That's the beauty of the wealth. You know, like when the wealth is transferred to the righteous, we are not limited by economics. We are limited by vision. Like when the wealth of the wicked is transferred to the righteous, we don't have to do things that economically make sense. We can do things that don't make sense, but they seek first the kingdom of God. Let me just throw a random example out there. A random example. For those of you who are in Sydney, for example, I can guarantee you that there's a shortage of beds in hospitals. This is just one ridiculous idea that's probably not even real. There's a shortage of beds in hospitals. Now, there are people that are dying in the hallway, dying at home because they can't get to the hospital for beds, right? Can you imagine if the Christians got together because they'd been part of the transfer of wealth and they said, hey, Mayor of Sydney, whatever, state member for Sydney, we would like to build a hospital for you guys. We will build it. It's going to be the best, going to have the best technology inside of it. We're going to underwrite the whole thing, and we're happy to run it at a loss. In fact, if it's only ever got half the amount of people in it, doesn't matter. We'll fund it at a loss because we want to give people the dignity of looking after them at the end of their life. That's what we want to do to serve the people. Can you imagine? Now, the difference between us doing that and not doing that is just money. Right? So that's why God's wanted the transfer of wealth, because you can do stupid things like that don't make sense economically, but man will be on the front page of the paper tomorrow, like, why would you do this? Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Well, let me tell you. So the transfer of wealth has always been something the Lord wants. And if you want an example of that, it's pretty much the Old Testament. You can start there. Literally, can you imagine? God's instructions were, go and take over that city. And the instructions were typically something like, put them all to the sword. Put them all to the sword. And then it was, take all of their valuables and move to the next battle. That was God's instructions. Put them to the sword, take everything valuable and move on. And they went for, thousands of years just fighting, taking all of the valuables and moving on. Because he wants the transfer of wealth. In fact, there's one case where he doesn't, right? You remember after they cross over, they got Jericho, and he says, in this case, I don't want you to take the gold bits and distribute them amongst yourselves. I want you to take all the treasures from Jericho, and I want you to put them in the treasury for the new country, which is going to be Israel in the promised land, right? So fast forward to today, does God still want a transfer of wealth? You bet your bottom dollar. There's more unrighteousness, it's front and center today than possibly ever before. And so, but the reason why I bring that up today is because we are standing here or sitting in April 2021 with probably the greatest opportunity for the transfer of wealth that's ever happened in Australian history and global history in front of us. And let me quantify that for you. Treasury, Australia, and this is the same. We also have the numbers for the UK and the USA, and I only really have the numbers for the developed world. But take Australia. Australian Treasury, our government department, have put out a report at the end of February saying how much of the COVID stimulus money remains unspent. So out of all of the government stimulus money that was put into the Australian economy, they're able to pull a report on how much is in bank accounts that remains unspent. And as of February, so the number will be a little bit lower now because that money is going to be spent, but as of the end of February, Treasury reported that there is 200 billion, with a B, 200 billion of stimulus money that had remained unspent in Australia. Now, just to give you the context, they only put out 240 billion. So 40 billion was spent in COVID, like in the heat of COVID, and 200 billion remains. So right now, our economy, and America put in 1.9 trillion, so crazy town. And they've got 10 times as many people, and they put in 10 times as much stimulus, give or take, right? So they've got a similar sort of picture. England would be on par. England gave a little bit less. There's $200 billion right now, becomes a land grab for us. So now, do we do business? Like, we should be getting up every single day and fighting for our share of that 200 billion so that we can take it from the hands of the wicked and bring it to the hands of the righteous so that we can start to fund projects that advance the kingdom of God. See, that'll get you up every day. What won't get you up every day is I want a new BMW. Well, that might get you up for one day, but that won't keep getting you up, right? Apart from maybe a Ram, as I heard Andrew say before, which I have also just purchased. So welcome to the Ram Club. Welcome to the Ram Club. There is nothing better. I have to wait for mine, though, a little bit, Andrew, which sucky, but anyway. So there is a caveat, though, to the transfer of wealth. I've probably painted a really nice picture for you guys and got you a little bit excited about the transfer of wealth, but there is a caveat. The Bible says it's from the wicked to the righteous. It doesn't say the wicked to the believer. And so I think there's a distinction in how we operate as kingdom entrepreneurs. If we are seeking first the kingdom of God, if we are doing business to advance the kingdom of God, if we're sensing a duty as an ambassador called to the marketplace to do business, then if we're operating righteously and we're honoring people and we're paying fairly and we're honoring the ATO and we're not trying to chip the ATO and if we're operating righteously in our operations, in the small things, if we're not doing cash jobs and blah, blah, if we're operating righteously, then we will be part of the transfer of wealth. If we're not operating righteously in our daily activities, we won't be part of the transfer of wealth. There will be... The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous. So we need to constantly be auditing ourselves about how righteous we are in our operations. And let me tell you, just to be, here's an equalizer for every single one of us. We're all doing it wrong somewhere. No one gets out of this. So now that we can agree that we're all doing it wrong somewhere, our prayer to God should be, show me where I am not being righteous. Lord, show me where I'm not being righteous. And he'll pinpoint an area, and then it's your job to root that out and get rid of it and start operating righteously. If you were to be on a constant journey of doing that for the rest of your entrepreneurial life, you will become more and more righteous, which means you can be more and more trusted, which means that you'll get more and more of the transfer of wealth. But it comes down to us. It comes down to us. It's a hard prayer. But you got to remember, God's not upset by your sin. It's already been paid for. But he would like to get it out of your life. So in my experience, when I go to the Father and say, show me where my character's letting me down, show me where I'm unrighteous, he will show me. Not because he's condemning me, because he wants it out of my life more than I do. And then he does it in that really loving, kind way where he helps you through that journey, and then you end up better on the other end. So it can be a bitter pill to swallow, but vital in my opinion. This one very, very quickly. This is not really a scriptural kind of thing, but something that's really heavy on my heart is family. Like I said to you, I've got 4 beautiful girls, a wife and 3 kids. It's so easy in this modern world to see them as different parts of your life. right? And the truth of the matter is, if you've got a spouse and if you've got kids, I mean, if you don't, then it's probably your parents, depending on how young you are. But you've got to do family well. And the world need an example. The world need to see practitioners that you can build a highly profitable business and look after your health and look after your family, and balance, if you like, for a better word, the important areas of your life. And this is a big challenge, right? But to me, you can take every single one of my businesses away and I'll take my family, thanks, right? And in fact, I heard on one of the little videos from in the last however many months that I listened back, somebody was saying, it was a guy that's in hospitality. He said to his wife, I think they went on a caravan trip, and he said, we could do this. As long as we've got Jesus and each other, we could live in a caravan. And I'm like, I fully agree that that's where we should get to. If I've got my family and a caravan, and by the way, I did 2.5 years in a caravan, so I know how bad it is. It's what matters. And so I guess I'm only bringing it up because we can see them as competing priorities in our life sometimes as entrepreneurs. Like they're holding me back from building a great business, or things like this. And all I want to say to you is they're actually the priority. And by honoring your family, you'll also receive honor from God in your business. You can't put your family to the side for 10 years to build a business, to provide for them, if you're not there for them. It doesn't work that way. You can get out of balance for a short period of time. Like when I went around the country and did my momentum tour for 7 days, right? Like I rang them every day, but I wasn't really in my family's life. Like you can be out of balance for a period of time. If you're doing a massive launch or a deadline, you can sit down with your family and say, I'm going to be a bit absent for the next little, the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And you can go away, but you've got to come back. And then you've got to make it up to them, and then you've got to love on them, and then you've got to really reward them, and because they're the priority. And I guess I'm only bringing it up because I run the risk of going so hardcore business that you might catch that and run and forget the people that matter most. Now here's where I find that it becomes a problem. I meet people who are running a business and running a family and volunteering 37 hours a week at church and playing golf with the boys and bowling on a Tuesday. And I'm like, you've spread yourself too thin, right? I mean, first of all, don't play golf anyway. If you want a happy life, if I say anything valuable, just don't play golf. You'll be happier if you don't play golf, right? But every time you add something in your diary, you add competing priorities. I know that if I was to add something else into my life, it would be my family that suffer. I'm not prepared to do that. So for me, my life is the most boring life in the world. I mean, I love it, but it's boring. I train every day at the gym. I love my family every single day. I build a business, and I'm involved in my church. Anything else, I don't do. Nothing else. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but for me, I know, because my businesses, well, we've got 5. My businesses are, they're heavy and they're hard and they're all in and they take a huge amount of focus and attention. So if I add anything else in, it's going to be on the weekend, and that's going to rob from my family, and I'm not prepared to do that. So I guess all I'm really saying here is what you'll give time to what you value most, and I would like to see family put up on a pedestal for the sole reason that the world needs to see that you can build a business and have a great life and look after your health and keep a family, and then they will realize that it can be done. One more thing before I finish up and hand back to Dan in about 4 minutes' time. The parable of the Minas in Luke is one of my favorite stories. And this is how it goes. It says, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive a kingdom for himself and then to return, called 10 of his servants. He calls 10 of his servants and gave to them 10 minas and said to them, do business till I come, trade until I return. So how many servants did he give money to? 10. And then it goes on a little bit further. And when he returned, having received the kingdom, he then commanded these servants, how many? 10, to whom he had given the money, to be called to him, that he might know how much every man gained by trading. Then came the first one, saying, Master, my mina has earned 10 minas. And he said to him, well done, good servant, because you are faithful with little, have authority over 10 cities. See, this is the game that we need to be playing. It's not about the minas. It's not about the wealth. It's about the influence. This person went from 1 mina to 10 minas to being put over 10 cities. When you do the right thing with worldly wealth, God will give you influence over what really matters, and that's people and communities and policy. This person who turned 1 mina into 10 and went over 10 cities, he sets the culture for those 10 cities. He gets to decide what is allowed inside those 10 cities. All right? Now, that's not even the bit I want to point out of this, right? That's just a side note. The next person comes and says, here, master, your mina, I turned it into 5. And he says, well done, I put you over 5 cities. And then, as we know, the third one comes up and he says, well, I was scared of you. You're an austere man. You reap where you did not sow. I didn't do anything with it. I hid it, put it in a handkerchief. Basically, I was scared, so here's your 1 mina back. And we know the master says to him, out of your own mouth, I'll judge you. And then he says, take it off the 1 and give it to the one that has 10. The bit that I want to pull from that story, though, is the bit that's not written. So how many were given a mina? 10. How many gave a report? 3. And we always talk about the one that did nothing with it. But 7 never came back. 7 of the 10 were given a mina, and they went and spent it on their own lifestyle. There was never a return for the master. They didn't care less about the master. They just went and blew it on whatever they wanted. So here's my question for you. God's put inside of you gifts and talents to be able to go into the marketplace, to create wealth, to fund churches, to fund your spiritual covering and have influence. And he's put inside of you an ability to do that. But along the way, the lure of wealth is going to be so strong that you are going to want to be tempted to spend it on yourself. Because the journey of business is so long and so hard that you're either going to believe your own press, or the enemy's going to lie to you that you've deserved it, you should have it all, yada, yada, yada. And then towards the end of your life, there is a chance that you will turn around and there will be very little fruit for the kingdom of God. There'll be very little return for the mina that was put inside of you. If I can just leave you with one thought, one question, one point, it would be this. Please, please, please make sure that at the end of your entrepreneurial life, all the way through, but at the end, you can proudly say that God put a mina inside of me and I was able to return it and multiply it and give it back by producing fruit in the kingdom of God. God, I want to be one of the 2 out of the 10. I don't want to be one of the 7. It's been a delight hanging out with you this morning, and I'd love to connect with you in any way that you would like. I'm on Instagram, so at Wes Hone, Wes with a Z. I'm obviously on Facebook like everybody else, and we have our own YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/Kingdom Business, I think there's like 400 videos there of practical business training that you can get. In fact, Pat might just go and pop it in the chat for me now, the handle for our YouTube channel. Dan, back over to you. I just appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you guys.